Welcome to Perfectville, your first place podcast for your third place in the playoff hunt. 4-7, coming off a bye on a 2-game win streak. Miami Dolphins, part of the BLEAV network, presented by Fanduel. I am Sam Marcoux, and I am getting you kick off ready for the Miami Dolphins against the New Orleans Saints. Week 13, they're back. Ladies and gentlemen, citizens of Perfectville, the Miami Dolphins returned after a bye week, after 2 wins in a row against the Buffalo Bills, and of course the Washington Commanders overseas in Madrid, Spain. A much-needed and well-earned break from the bye week means they are coming into the last game of November with the ability to win 4 out of their last 5, 3 in a row, and keep themselves in the playoff hunt. In a wide-open AFC, everything that happened during the bye week broke the Miami Dolphins' way, especially this week on Thanksgiving, where you saw the Chiefs lose, where you saw the Baltimore Ravens lose. And now, with a victory against the New Orleans Saints, which is very much possible, the Miami Dolphins will find themselves just one single measly game behind the Kansas City Chiefs and just ticking up the ladder a little bit at a time in the AFC, which, again, wide open. No great teams. Why not us, right? So we're going to talk all about the Miami Dolphins, all about the New Orleans Saints, take a look at these matchups, take a look and see where the Miami Dolphins can possibly exploit a very bad New Orleans Saints offense and an okay, fair to middling New Orleans Saints defense. And on top of all that, the Miami Dolphins are getting healthy at the right time. Man, I wish they had a better record right now, but Darren Waller looks like he may come back. Austin Jackson looks like he's coming back to fortify that offensive line. Rasul Douglas coming back in the cornerback room, in the defensive backfield. So many injuries to that team, yet they continue. That squad continues to outperform everybody's expectations. You get the veteran Rasul Douglas back for this game. It looks like the Miami Dolphins might be peaking at the right time, and the way the schedule is breaking, looks like they may have a chance to get to at least 500 and make this interesting the rest of the way. Speaking of interesting, I want to say thank you to everybody who participated, downloaded, listened, and just hung out with us on Hatesgiving. It was our 9th annual Hatesgiving Day Parade. The two-time Hall of Famer, Christopher Cullen, was back in the studio, back in the town of Perfectville, along with yours truly, and we just started talking about everything that we hate. I don't know this for a fact, but I feel like we use the word hate and the word fuck more than we've ever used. It might be a personal record, a world record of hate fuckery in the 9th annual Hatesgiving Day Parade. You can find that, download it, take a look on YouTube, like and subscribe and download, and just take a look at everything. We killed it this year, if I do say so myself. And speaking of killing it, the Miami Dolphins have been killing it ever since they've made some changes here. Jalen Phillips gets shipped off to Philadelphia. All of a sudden, the Miami Dolphins start winning. Chris Greer is relieved of his duties as general manager. All of a sudden, the Miami Dolphins start winning. Frank Smith makes his way from the booth down to the sideline. All of a sudden, the Miami Dolphins start winning. They're at 4-7. It is not a record to be proud of, but considering how they had been playing and how they have been looking against teams, to all of a sudden be 4-7 and in the actual graphic, in the hunt, quote unquote, for the AFC playoff picture is it's a minor victory, if not a giant one, for all the citizens of Perfectville to see us just still mathematically in it. And the team has not given up. We talked about this last week, but the team has not given up on Mike McDaniel. Mike McDaniel has not given up on this team. One of the things that I have noticed over this little mini win streak here is that it does seem like Mike McDaniel's having fun again. And that is key. Because if you look last year, and you look at the beginning of this year, Mike McDaniel visibly did not look like he was having fun coaching the Miami Dolphins. And the results, I think, are a result of that lack of fun. So I don't know what's happening. I don't know if winning is curing this and making him have a good time again, or if there's something else that's going on that's allowing him to have a good time, and thus now we're winning. But it does seem like this team is still taking on the personality of the head coach, and the head coach right now has a personality that is what we fell in love with 4 years ago. This guy who's making jokes at press conferences. He's, funny and witty. He's calling the right plays. He's designing the right things, and maybe that's what it is. Maybe he's getting a chance to get into his bag. You can see with all the injuries on the offensive line, of course, Darren Waller goes down. Tyreek Hill's a big part of this offense that's gone for the rest of the season and probably for the rest of his career here in Miami. It's forced Mike McDaniel to get creative. It's forced Mike McDaniel to do other things. And one of the things that he seems to have discovered and figured out, maybe behind the rest of us, is that this is a run-first offense. You've got Devon Achane, You've got Ollie Gordon, and you've got an offensive line that figures out how to move the guys in front of them, chip them, knock them off their space, and allow those two running backs to go where they need to go. He's added a sixth lineman in Dan Brunskill, who sometimes lines up as an extra offensive lineman, sometimes lines up as an extra running back. Either way, no matter how you slice it, it seems to be working for the Miami Dolphins. So I'm excited to see what they're going to do against the New Orleans Saints. I do think the Miami Dolphins are going to win. Spoiler alert, I will get to my official prediction later in this episode as we break down everything, including we'll just jump into the Fanduel Sportsbook. We'll take a look at the line. We'll take a look at the odds. We'll take a look at the individual props. We'll do that in segment 2 and just break down this entire game and find different ways for you, yes, you, to enjoy the Miami Dolphins against the New Orleans Saints. But as it stands right now, the Saints come in with not so much good health the way the Miami Dolphins have. Alvin Kamara has already been ruled out. Tyler Shook, who spells his name wrong and pronounces it even worse, is going to be their starting quarterback. Chris Olave hurt his back this week during practice. It does appear that he will be playing in this game. That is a huge weapon, a big weapon for the New Orleans Saints. That's something that the Miami Dolphins are certainly going to have to account for. But outside of Chris Olave, I really don't see this offense scaring the Miami Dolphins defense. I really don't see this offense giving Anthony Weaver's squad any sort of resistance, because when you look at what they've done on offense, which is not much, I think they're 31st in overall. I mean, they just don't run the ball well. They don't throw the ball well. They don't score a lot of touchdowns. This is a team that really needs a lot of help on offense from their defense and special teams and the other team in order to be successful. And what I mean by that is the Miami Dolphins certainly have had their fair share of self-inflicted wounds this season. I would argue that a few of the losses that they've had this year have simply been because they haven't played up to snuff. So that's going to be the biggest issue for the Miami Dolphins in this game for their defense. Can they get off the field when they're supposed to? Can they mitigate the penalties and those back-breaking third and long conversions, however they convert it, for the New Orleans Saints? If they can do that, I think they're going to be just fine. This offense isn't scaring anybody. You got to take Chris Olave out of this game. He's a little banged up, but he looks like he's going to play. So if you figure out a way to isolate and mitigate him, the rest of the offense for the New Orleans Saints does not scare me. I don't think the running backs are good. I don't think the tight end is good. I don't think the rest of the wide receivers or that quarterback is really going to scare anybody, even on a Halloween day, let alone a regular standard Sunday, November 30th for the Miami Dolphins and the New Orleans Saints. This game is being played in Miami, so a short little trek for the New Orleans Saints. Doesn't really matter. I think the Miami Dolphins, coming off of a bye week, coming off of 2 big wins, getting healthy, if they can get Darren Waller back, as well as Austin Jackson, as well as Rasul Douglas, they're going to be feeling themselves in this game. I think they're going to be feeling themselves. Those are some big offensive pieces to get back when it comes to Austin Jackson, taking it back over the right tackle, as well as Darren Waller. Darren Waller, if he plays in this game, will probably have somewhat of a snap count, but we've all seen what Darren Waller can do with a snap count in this offense. With Tyreek Hill out of the way, the only real passing threat that the Miami Dolphins have right now is A, Jalen Waddle, who has stepped up big time, and B, Devon Achane, who's basically doing everything for the Miami Dolphins. He's got 900 yards on the ground. He's got like 5,000 all-purpose yards. He has been the MVP for the Miami Dolphins in this bad 4-7 season, but he has been a bright light throughout. Whether they played well or played poorly, Devon Achane has been the guy. But adding Darren Waller back into that passing game, even if he plays 20 snaps, those are 20 opportunities for him to change the outcome of this game, and you see it. You can see it when he does it. Tua already trusts him. He's a big, able-bodied, great hands tight end who can get down the seam, rip that thing open, and just completely flip the field with one play. So if you're going to give him 20, I like the chances of the Miami Dolphins breaking this New Orleans Saints defense and getting into the end zone and scoring points. Not just field goals, but touchdowns, which is crucial for the Miami Dolphins down the stretch. They cannot settle for field goals. They got to get this ball into the end zone as early and as often as they can, regardless of who the opponent is. But Darren Waller coming back, if he comes back in this game, I think the Dolphins were going to win this game, whether or not Darren Waller played, whether or not Austin Jackson came back. But the fact that those two guys may come back and just shore up this offense, I think you're going to see an offense that we envisioned and imagined earlier in this season finally come to fruition with a solid running game that mixes both Devon Achane's speed and Ollie Gordon's power. You're going to see a passing game that has more than one critical weapon in Jalen Waddle. You're going to see Darren Waller out there if he plays. And I think you're going to see a Miami Dolphins team that can play defense against a really, really bad offense in the New Orleans Saints and play offense against an okay defense in the New Orleans Saints. So this might be the game. There's been some good games from the Dolphins this season, but this might be the game where you look at it and go, okay, I see the potential. I see why they're in the hunt. It has that recipe, if you will, for the Miami Dolphins to come out and cook with fire. So we'll see what happens, but I do think Darren Waller coming back, even if he plays 10, 15, 20 snaps, is a huge benefit for Tua Tagovailoa as well as the Miami Dolphins as a whole. I think you're going to continue to see Devon Achane just run wild. He may break 100 yards. I'll get to that in the second segment of the show, and he may get himself 1,000 yards rushing on the ground right off the bat, coming off the bye. And I think Jalen Waddle is going to continue to establish himself as the true wide receiver one of this team, not just for the rest of this season, but going forward. I like the chances of the Miami Dolphins walking out of this game, a home game against the New Orleans Saints on a 3-game winning streak, moving their record to 5-7 and inching closer to legitimate playoff contender status. They're in the hunt, sort of, kind of, technically. But I think a win here goes a long way towards getting people to start raising their eyebrows, looking up from their newspapers and their phones and going, all right, the Miami Dolphins are here. And even at 5-7, that's not a record that's going to stop the presses. But considering they're at 2-7 and look dead in the water, getting 3 in a row, beating the Buffalo Bills in a statement game, going overseas and beating the Commanders, and then showing that they can continue that momentum through a break like they've had with the bye and beat the New Orleans Saints, who they're supposed to beat, who they should be beating. Everybody, including Fanduel Sportsbook, has us beating them. If they can come out and prove what they're supposed to prove, I think you're going to start seeing people talk about the Miami Dolphins. And then the next test will happen. How does Miami work? How do they operate once the press clippings start becoming positive again? We're going to find out, hopefully, in just under 24 hours when the Miami Dolphins take the field against the New Orleans Saints. And we'll see what happens. We're also going to see what happens here. I'm going to take a little break. We're going to pay some bills. As the radio DJs like to say, you're going to listen to the ads. I think you should buy any and all of the ads, because not only are the Miami Dolphins coming back from a break, but we're going to come back from a break right after these words. All right, welcome back. It is the town of Perfectville. I am Sam Marcoux on the BLEAV Network, presented by Fanduel. We're just talking Miami Dolphins ball. We're getting you kickoff ready for Week 13. The Miami Dolphins hosting the New Orleans Saints in Miami. And it looks like everything is going Miami's way for this game. Just looking at the last 5 games, the New Orleans Saints are 1-4. The Miami Dolphins are 3-2 with 2 wins in a row. Of course, with the bye, they've done really well here in November. It looks like the Miami Dolphins, according to Fanduel Sportsbook, are favored by 5.5 points. Now, keep in mind when you're looking at these lines, the home team, in this case, the Miami Dolphins, typically start out at 2.5 to 3 points just as a standard. So anything on top of that shows you what the odds makers are actually thinking when we look at this game and you see who's playing and you see who's lining up here. So the Miami Dolphins at 5.5 tells you they're pretty locked in terms of the odds makers as winning this game. I happen to agree with them. The over-under is 42.5. That's not a strong over-under. Look, with the Miami Dolphins being a ball control offense, depending on what Darren Waller does, if Darren Waller plays, I may take the over in this. But if he doesn't, I think the under is a strong play. So you're going to have to take a look and see what Darren Waller's doing, and that might change and trigger what you're going to do in terms of taking the over or the under. I think you take the Miami Dolphins minus 5.5. I think they're going to win this game by more than 5.5 points. Obviously, I think it's probably going to be more of a double-digit win. I don't think the Saints are very good. I think the Miami Dolphins are motivated. They are looking to not just win this week, but win this season and see if they can't turn their fortunes around in real time and become the playoff team that everybody expected them to be at the beginning of the season. So there you go. I think the Miami Dolphins are going to take this. So if you're going to bet this game, if you're going to gamble and you're going to take the line, I say take the Miami Dolphins minus 5.5, according to Fanduel in the sportsbook. And when it comes to the over-under, you're going to want to take a look and see what Darren Waller's going to do. If he plays, I think you take the over. If he does not play, smash that under and just thank me later. That's all I'm saying. Go to the Fanduel sportsbook, click over to the NFL, scroll down to the New Orleans Saints at Miami Dolphins game, and click the box. It's very easy. Miami Dolphins minus 5.5. And what's Darren Waller doing? Oh, he's going to play. Let's go ahead and hit the over. Oh, what's that? He's not going to play. That's okay. Dolphins are still going to win. And I think they're going to take the under in that case. So let's take a look at some other wagers that you can make on this game, because it's not just straight up. It's not just the over under. It's not just the, spread, but there's individual props you can do. So anytime touchdown for Devon Achane, minus 135. I think you take that. That means you're putting $135 down to win 100. But Devon Achane getting a touchdown against the New Orleans Saints, I think is probably going to happen. I think he's going to be the central focus of this team, regardless of Darren Waller or Jalen Waddle. It's going to be Devon Achane's show until the wheels come off. Jalen Waddle, anytime touchdown, plus 125. I like that. That seems like good money. Plus 600 for the first touchdown. I could see that happening as well. Darren Waller, plus 210 for an anytime touchdown, plus 900 for the first touchdown. Think about that. If Darren Waller plays, then those odds are fantastic. You could put $100 down and win 900 for Darren Waller getting the first touchdown. I like those odds as well. Let's take a look at some other stats out there that we could take a look at and see what might make the most sense. So let's just take a look at passing yards. Tua Tagovailoa, minus 1,400 for 125. Not a good bet. You're putting a lot of money down to win very little. He's minus 320 to get 175. He's plus 108 at 225. Now, I do like that bet. That's not a lot of money to win, but I think 225 yards for Tua Tagovailoa, especially if Darren Waller comes back, you will see them throw the ball a little bit more and target him a little bit more than if they didn't have him at the tight end position. So again, if Darren Waller is playing, I think Tua Tagovailoa getting 225 plus yards makes a lot of sense. 198 plus 198 for 250 plus. Not a bad bet. I think if I was feeling it a little bit, maybe I had a little bit of breakfast beer, I might go ahead and lay that one as well. Let's take a look at the receiving yards. Receiving yards here for this one. Jalen Waddle. He's going to be plus 112 for 80. I think that's a good bet. If you're going to look at any of these individual props, I think Jalen Waddle getting 80 yards receiving, yeah, I would take that bet. Against this defense, in this offense, where everyone's going to be focused in on Devon Achane, especially if Darren Waller's playing, he's going to be that big body out there. You cannot ignore him. That just helps Jalen Waddle get open, helps him find the little pockets in his zone defense, grab that ball, and run. Because the yak that Jalen Waddle can bring after just a 5 to 10 or 15-yard catch is incredible. Devon Achane, 40 plus yards receiving. That's plus 120. Again, I don't know if I'm taking that bet, but I could see you doing it. I could see you winning. I could see you thanking me later if you did. Let's take a look at the rushing yards here. Devon Achane, 50 plus minus 670. Not a good bet, but here's where the money is. 90 plus yards. He's plus 148. I believe Devon Achane's about 100 yards away from being a 1,000-yard rusher, and he could easily get that against this defense. All it takes is one seam, and he's going to get 80 yards in one run. If he can get 90 on the game, which I think is very doable, you're rolling in money. If he gets over 100 yards, it's plus 225. I think Devon Achane is motivated by a couple of things, and one of those is making sure that everyone knows that he is a bona fide 3-down running back, and one way to do that, get yourself a 1,000-yard season. I could see him being very motivated to get 1,000 yards in this game with the line being healthy, with everyone coming back from injury that's coming back, against a middling defense that is the New Orleans Saints. If he can get through that defensive front, it's game over for the New Orleans Saints defense when it comes to Devon Achane. I think that's a fun bet right there. It's a fun bet that gets you into the game throughout, but Devon Achane, plus 225 at 100 yards rushing against New Orleans Saints. That's where your money is. That's where you walk away as a winner, as a Miami Dolphin fan, as well as somebody who's putting a little bit of action on the game. So check it out, the Fanduel Sportsbook. It's not just the Dolphins Saints, ladies and gentlemen. You can bet on the NBA. You can bet on the NHL. You can bet on all the other NFL teams. The NCAA football playoffs are coming up. That's going to be fun to check out on the Fanduel Sportsbook. They've got all the bowl games coming up, all the Egg Bowl and the Holiday Bowl and the Spidey and his Friends Bowl, or whatever is going on out there. You can find it and you can put action on it. The Fanduel Sportsbook. And again, if you take my advice, I've been pretty damn good on the over-under, as well as if the Miami Dolphins are going to cover this year. So take my advice and thank me later. Speaking of thanking me later, I think you're going to thank me for putting together this Hatesgiving. I'm not done with Hatesgiving. I'm just not. I think there's going to be some additional edits that I'm going to be putting out there over the next week or so. So enjoy that on YouTube. By the way, we are streaming all of these episodes on YouTube now. So if you're listening to this on Spotify, if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, and you want to see what my face looks like, if you want to see what Chris Cullen looks like, or any of the guests that come on the show, feel free to go onto YouTube, type in Perfectville. You'll see us float to the top of your search engine. Just go ahead and subscribe. And every single episode that we drop on there, you can watch it. We're trying to grow that a little bit. So help us out. Help a brother out. Like, subscribe, comment if you'd like. We're getting some good comments on the chats in these episodes, so we appreciate that as well. But let's get back into the Miami Dolphins New Orleans Saints game. Again, the New Orleans Saints are the road dogs. They're coming into Miami. Miami's well rested, coming off of a bye week, coming off of a 2-win little roulette there against the Buffalo Bills and, of course, the Washington Commanders. They're taking on the Saints. This is an AFC versus NFC. This doesn't help the Miami Dolphins other than to beat the Saints. If they lose, effectively the season's over. You're not getting to the playoffs in the AFC at 9-8. I just don't think that's going to happen. But if you win, it doesn't move the needle officially a lot for the Miami Dolphins, but essentially the Miami Dolphins playoffs started 2 weeks ago. And it is single elimination from here on out. And if you look at the schedule, you've got the Saints, you've got the Jets, you've got the Bengals, who all of a sudden look like they got their groove back now that Joe Burrow's back under center. You've got a Patriots team that may be resting their starters week 17. And you've got a Steelers team, which is up and down. Old man Aaron Rodgers. There's some pieces there that scare me. There's some pieces there that don't. It is lining up pretty well for the Miami Dolphins to possibly make a run, to make this interesting, to possibly squeak into the playoffs. But it's got to start against the New Orleans Saints. You got to take care of business at home. You got to take care and beat the teams that you're supposed to beat. They have not done that very well over the last couple of seasons. They need to get back to their winning ways of the early years of Mike McDaniel, where you beat the losing teams, and then you got to figure out a way to beat those winning teams as well. But the Saints aren't very good. I think the Miami Dolphins are finding their stride. Like I said, they're getting healthy. They don't have to deal with Alvin Kamara out of the backfield. They do have to deal with Chris Olave, who's a little bit banged up, but he's about the only weapon that the Saints have on offense. Defensively, the strength of the Saints is up front. I mean, look, they've got some players there. They got some players that our line's going to have to address. But I do think schematic-wise, I do think play-calling-wise, Mike McDaniel's going to get into his bag. He's had an extra week to figure out how to game plan against this specific team. And I think he's starting to see that everyone's looking at them going, all right, are the Miami Dolphins back? Are they for real? Let's take a look at this game and see what they're going to do. So I think the Miami Dolphins are going to come out. They're going to have a nice game plan. It would not surprise me to see some trickery, to see some tomfoolery from the Miami Dolphins offense. I think defensively, all they got to do is really line up and play the way they're supposed to play. Play responsibly. Don't take any major chances on defense. If your responsibility is a certain gap, you stick to that gap. If your responsibility is to hit the quarterback, you try like hell to get there and hit the quarterback. If you are a defensive back member, if you're a safety, if you're a cornerback, I wouldn't take any chances. Just keep the ball in front of you, keep the player in front of you, get them on the turf. And if you can, maybe punch that ball out. They've been pretty good over the last few weeks about punching the ball out after it's secured by the offense. But this offense from the Saints, again, just does not scare me. And I think if the Miami Dolphins play solid, consistent defense, if they can tackle consistently, the Saints do not scare me on offense. What would scare me is if the Dolphins come out and they just overlook this team, or if they try to put an exclamation point on an unfinished sentence and try to jump a route, and all of a sudden Olave's free for 80 yards and a touchdown. If they try to punch the ball out before securing the tackle, and all of a sudden fourth down becomes first down because somebody converted that extra yard or two. If on offense they try to get too cute and they start throwing the ball too much and they get away from the run game, and all of a sudden you're in a dogfight. The more points scored in this game, the better it's going to be for the Miami Dolphins. The Saints cannot hang with the Miami Dolphins on offense. So if you can get out and score points, that's good for you. But you don't got to chase them. Let the game come to you both offensively and defensively, and I think you'll be just fine if you're the Miami Dolphins. So that would be my game plan. I would focus on the fundamentals. I'd focus on getting things right the first time, lining up the right way, getting the play call in on time, making sure that the motions are happening, that people are stopping, that we don't have pre-snap penalties on both offense and defense. Those are drive killers both ways. Just focus on the fundamentals. You have more talent than the New Orleans Saints on both sides of the ball. Just get the ball to your playmakers. Let them go make plays. and go line up and do it again. I think the Miami Dolphins win this game. Like I said, on Fanduel, they are favored by 5.5 points. I think you take the Dolphins in the points. The over-under is 42.5. If Darren Waller plays, take the over. If he does not, take the under. Because the Miami Dolphins are going to have to carry the majority of that 42.5 in order to make that a thing. And I think Darren Waller will allow them to do that. But without it, I think they're going to go in, going to be heavy run, short passes, and that smacks of an under hitting. But at the end of the day, I think the Miami Dolphins are going to win this game. I think the Miami Dolphins are going to put up 24 points in this game. That's what I think they're going to do. They're going to put up 24 points. I think the Saints are putting up 14. Maybe they get a late touchdown to make that 14, but I don't think this is going to be a game that the Miami Dolphins are going to let get out of hand. I don't think they're going to, I'm hoping they don't let the Saints stick around, because you let bad teams stick around, they give them some, little bit of bravado, makes them feel good about themselves, and all of a sudden they're making plays that they shouldn't be making, and you start rolling backwards on roller skates, and we don't need that if you're the Miami Dolphins. Not right now. Now that you just got onto the graphic of being in the hunt, you got to keep hunting. So I think the Miami Dolphins will get out to an early lead. I think they'll just be consistent with their scoring. They'll be consistent with their drives. They'll be consistent. You probably see a lot of punts in this game. I don't envision a lot of turnovers. See a lot of punting in this game. But at the end of the game, I think the Miami Dolphins are going to be victorious 24-14, move that record to 5-7, get themselves a little closer to the Kansas City Chiefs, get themselves a little closer to the rest of those teams that are on the periphery, and make themselves solidly, absolutely solidly in the hunt for the AFC, which is wide open right now. If you get to 5-7, then you're looking at the Jets, who are a disaster. You get to 5-7, you're looking at going on the road and getting 3 wins in the AFC East. 1 against Buffalo, 2 against the Jets. Sweeping the Jets the week after this it would make my heart feel so good. I'd almost have to cancel Hatesgiving if that was the case, because I would love that. We're not there yet. We got to get to the Saints. We got to beat the Saints, and then we'll move on to the Jets after that. And with that, I think that's going to do it, ladies and gentlemen. We got you kickoff ready. We got you the perfect preview for Week 13. The New Orleans Saints traveling to Miami to try to take on the juggernaut. 4-7, 2-game win streak, in the hunt, coming off of a bye, getting healthy, Miami Dolphins. And again, nobody's perfect except us. So check it out on FanDuel. Slam the Miami Dolphins -5.5. Take the over if Darren Waller is playing. Take the under if he is not. Thank me later. Enjoy the game. We'll be back after that. We'll talk about the 5-7 Miami Dolphins, hopefully, or the awful 4-8 season over Miami Dolphins, depending on the outcome of the game. But until then, the only thing left to say on behalf of myself, the entire BLEAV Network, presented by FanDuel, is goodbye from Perfectville. Later.